Awesome. So I guess we are live, and I am actually so excited to have you all here in this broadcast where we've been doing live AI workshops for a while now. It started off a few months ago when we started bringing academics, people from industry in US and in Europe to actually learn from them and learn from their expertise. And then we very quickly realized that, wow, this is getting bigger. And how do we kind of expand this and bring sort of experts? And one thing leads to another. And here we are today. I'm sitting with Merve. She is an expert in the field of explainability, specifically from ethical perspective, policy, and she has a very rich and a broad sort of experience and background. She's been a founder. She's a founder of AI ethicist.org. She has her own consulting outfit, and she very strongly believes in principles that is actually sort of driving all of us to do wonderful stuff with the internet. But as much as we are doing wonderful stuff, it's like a guiding hand, like showing us the mirror. Because I'm fascinated with the technology. It would be ridiculous for me to just kind of say all this technological advancements have been in vain. But I think the pace of acceleration and the hyper automation has actually kind of created a situation in which the control that we had as humans in our conversations with each other and doing wonderful things together has kind of been sort of handed over to algorithms. As much as that is a problem, as much as that gives you control in optimization of your models and ecosystems. The problem that arises from that is that no one knows, how the algorithm is reasoning and what are the decisions that will be made on those algorithms. So in this workshop, it's actually a fascinating workshop because this also is a workshop in which we are looking at inclusivity, which is not a sort of fancy term we use in our firm as well. I'm the only person on the management board. There are ladies, scientists, researchers who are running this show with me, and I'm a minority, which I'm proud of because I'm learning a lot from these ladies. And having more into this ecosystem is fascinating. There are some wonderful announcements which we will be making in the coming weeks, and probably maybe I will, if I'm too restless, I will share with you guys, or maybe in the end of the show. So how we're going to do it? I'm going to bring in Merve, and we'll have this conversation with the workshop. With Merve is going to give spend maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then obviously you guys should keep asking questions, and I will constantly keep sort of engaging the ecosystem and helping you with your questions. And if in the end we have some time, we can wrap up and ask and answer some more specific questions. So more with that, thank you very much. And I'm very fascinated to not only have you in this workshop, but also with the fact that you and I have been working in the background behind the curtains really hard to actually put body, soul, and hands and feet to this problem so we can solve it together. So go ahead, Merve. Maybe it's good to just very quickly, briefly tell our audience who you are, what you do, because I'm sure you've done already a couple of really interesting things in the last couple of weeks we spoke. And then and take away. It's your workshop.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tarry. I love being here, and thanks for the opportunity, and really looking forward to all the future things that we're working on. My name is Merve Hickok. I'm the founder of AIethicist.org, as well as Lighthouse Career Consulting. I have a background in Fortune 100 companies for 20 years, mainly focused on HR technology, and diversity. And then I feel like I served my time in multinationals, and I'm now following two of my passions. One is AI and ethics, and the other one is working for a nonprofit, which I feel hugely about, developing learning systems for people with disabilities. I want to. So that's where I'm coming from, and within the work that I do for AI and ethics, I'm a lecturer and advocate for raising awareness, but also do capacity building for individuals and organizations. And I think this is one of the very interesting areas and exciting areas that I'm looking forward to partner with Live AI in terms of capacity building and bringing AI ethics to the forefront of the work. So today, as Terry mentioned, we have two targets in mind. One is to give you some snippets and some high-level ideas of what the upcoming explainable AI training module will encompass, and showcase the reasons why you shouldn't miss it. Because there's a business case for whether you're a CEO, a board member, a C-level executive, a developer, a data scientist, salesperson, a domain expert actually implementing this stuff, or even as a user being impacted by these technologies. There's a reason why you should have explainable AI and ethics at the core of your products and services. The second part of the webinar is kind of celebrate the woman in research and education series. This is Live AI's 3-workshop or 3-week webinar series. So this is the first one, and I'm really honored to be introducing this one. You don't want to miss the next one, the next two webinars in this series. So we're going to spend a few minutes looking at the state of diversity in AI and why Live AI and everything that Terry and his team and our team is doing is making a difference. I love the fact that he identifies as a minority within this group. But let me start focusing on the actual content. So ethics and discussions of how to live a good life and make responsible and ethical decisions have been around for more than a millennia, right? AI itself was born as a concept in the 1950s, but without the computing power, the big data, and connected resources that we have today, it didn't really meet the expectations to solve the problems or create the efficiencies people hoped that it would. I will not go into the details of an AI winter here, but let's suffice it to say that we don't want to experience that period again. But we also don't want to be techno-chauvinists throwing AI and machine learning solutions at every problem we see. I'm very big for tech. The reason I'm very focused on AI and ethics is to bring this as a mirror, as an opportunity, not as a constraint on the innovation and the technology. So in order to ensure that AI actually delivers what it promises to deliver and augment humans on making better decisions, deliver better solutions, help improve equity and fairness across our societies, we need to ask some real questions, right? This is where the field of AI ethics comes into place. It's a relatively new field with its noticeable expansion coinciding with some great developments in machine learning, as well as some horror stories that accompanied some products, some services, and some tech companies that we know. AI ethics is not a nice to have, but if you want to protect the future of your product, your business, your customer, your reputation, as well as the society in general, it is a must-have. I just want to underline that don't think of ethics as a constraint, but an opportunity. So just as a high level, what we're looking to focus on the upcoming Explainable AI training module, you're going to get some introduction to different explainability methods by Tarry. Understand the connections amongst the different AI principles and XAI and ways it's crucial for your products and businesses. Develop a view of some of the tensions and decision points that you might come across when you're trying to implement XAI, because there's really no going around the explainability, especially when we're looking at the future of regulation and where the technology itself is going, and learn of some real life cases on how absence of explainability can have substantial and sometimes life-threatening impact on humans and society, as well as your business. So we're going to look at some examples in healthcare, autonomous vehicles, criminal justice, recruitment, etc. We're really looking forward to this. Let me switch over the actual presentation now. I mentioned AI ethics principles, right? So since the fields of AI ethics started to expand around 2016, there's been a number of organizations coming up, and this includes NGOs, private companies, some countries, coming up with their own ethical stand or responsible AI principles, and trying to establish a field and some condensed high-level debate points. So when you're looking at the field right now, you'll see that there are 100 plus principles and guidelines out there. But I want to focus on the ones that are like directly relatable to explainable AI when we're talking about these principles. You might have seen some of or you might have been involved in some of the discussions, but if you're using any data set that is about humans, providing a prediction or classification about humans, or is trying to solve a problem involving humans, there's a good chance that your model and your data can lead to discrimination. This might be due to not understanding the context of the problem, and hence your data that might lead to bulk bias sampling, incorrect labeling, suboptimal or insensitive optimization, failure to consider the domain-specific legal or ethical constraints. So failure to properly manage your models and your data will automate or will threaten to automate injustices that are already embedded in the society and in your data set. So bias and fairness in itself is highly relatable, understanding the black box, your black box model, and understanding how there might be some bias that is embedded in that model and in the data set, and taking precautions and taking intentional steps towards resolving that is crucial. It's also crucial, explainability is also crucial in terms of the human review and control of the data and model. Without understanding, obviously, without understanding how the decisions are made within that model, you cannot really impact the decisions. You cannot really control what is coming out of that in terms of the outcomes. That leads to prevention of harm and accuracy. Obviously, if you don't understand your model, if you're not able to explain it, you don't know if you're actually harming someone, whether it's an individual or a society. And in terms of real life cases, your medical diagnostic algorithm might be working wrong, and you might be diagnosing someone in healthcare wrongly, or you might be withholding someone's access to credit, access to school, etc. So you want to make sure that you understand the model. You also want to protect your model, making sure that it's safe and secure, especially in the machine learning and deep learning models. You want to ensure that the natural changes in your data set, in constantly changing data set, as well as adversarial attacks are not impacting your outcomes and your model. So if you don't understand how the model is working, you won't be able to secure it, and you won't be able to safely develop it further or deploy it. That means that with all that bias, fairness, prevention of harm, accuracy, safety and security of your model brings accountability. We're going to touch upon some of the legislation, some of the policy and governance work in the training. But how do you measure? How do you measure, and how do you make sure that people who are liable or accountable and all your processes are accountable, that you can actually justify your decisions, and you can actually showcase that when you're asked. That is especially upcoming with the different regulations, as well as for those of you in EU or doing products or serving products in EU. GDPR is expanding within that. But also overall, the last point on the ethical principles, the principle of trust. If you don't have any of this, if you're not able to justify your decisions, secure your product, secure your model, if you're serving products that are biased or helping to further discriminate within the society, eventually you're going to lose trust. And that is going to have, whether you're in government, a government agency, or whether you have your own product, you're going to be impacting your own future. So what is explainable AI and ethics in that term, and why is it so crucial in terms of sorry, in terms of where you sit in a company or where you sit in an organization? Looking at this, it doesn't matter who you are, not which company or which industry or which sector you are. At minimum, you have these 6 stakeholders that you need to be worried about, you need to be careful about, and you're probably in multiple one of these. So as a CEO or board level or C-level executive, you should be worried about, when it comes to explainable AI and ethics, you should be worried about compliance and legal, especially in the realm of anti-discrimination laws, protected classes and proxies, and the different legislation. It has an impact on your reputation and brand. It will definitely have an impact on your revenue if your product has lost, if people have lost trust in your product, or if you've gone into some scandals because your product comes out as biased or discriminatory. It's also about the value alignment. If you are a company, if you're an organization with stated values of how you want to operate, aligning your models, aligning your products and services is crucial. And for me personally, this is where AI ethics is really crucial, is making a difference with that value alignment, making sure that what you say, that you walk what you actually talk, and aligning your products and services with your principles. You might be in the developer and data scientist team, so understanding and improving your data and your models is obviously crucial. That's the bane of our existence, right? But also the early identification of risks is crucial. Securing the model, we talked about safety and security, securing your model and outcomes, and making sure that you have control against adversarial attacks, but also gaining new insights. So if you're able to understand how your model is moving, changing, predicting, classifying, whatever it is that you're doing, you might actually be gaining new insights, and that's the beauty of machine learning and deep learning, and that's why we're also excited about this. You might be on the customer-facing services like sales or customer services. So there's a huge use of AI or machine learning models to improve forecasts, whether that's your sales forecast, logistics, pricing optimization, you name it. But also being able to keep and improve your customer trust and brand loyalty is crucial. And also when you have customers coming in, whether that is a organizational client or an individual client, asking about questions, asking to be notified, asking to be explained, especially within the realm of GDPR, you should be able to go back and have that relationship and have that conversation. You might be on the customer side implementing a product, and that is one of the things that usually in the conversation of AI ethics and explainability that usually falls between the cracks. We're so focused on big tech or developers and data scientists developing these products responsibly and ethically. A lot of the times we forget that there's an implementer side. You might be creating the best product, But if you haven't explained that to the
Just having a little bit, I think, connection issues. Just be patient, guys. I think she's gonna get back. So I can kind of, I think she's, Merve is going to be back in a few seconds. As I was last year also, I was presenting in the conference that was organized by the German and the French anti-competitive authorities. And it was very interesting because it was all talking about algorithms that have a rogue effect on how big companies and big tech are actually putting other platforms at a disadvantage. And I think my conversation was, I didn't even know that it was online. It was live on YouTube until just a couple of days ago. And what is really interesting is that what happens is when algorithms are getting very sophisticated, there is a possibility of algorithms to start actually colluding with each other. What that means is the chance of algorithms and obviously the big tech or the companies behind these algorithms are trying to actually create all kinds of pricing and all other arrangements in the background where there are no humans involved in that sort of conversation. So there was a French anti-competitive authority and the German anti-competitive authority that actually brought these two things together. There were people from Germany, from France, all over the world, and the room was full with lawyers, and it's really fascinating. And I was like, wow, I mean, how to explain to lawyers how things are going to sort of work out for them, because for the lawyers it's totally complicated. There's no human being you can sue. Algorithms are being modified, and if you're a machine learning or a deep learning engineer, from a technological perspective, you will have algorithms that you keep optimizing and fine-tuning. So you can imagine your machine learning operation pipeline, and you're putting your algorithms and you're bringing these algorithms into your pipeline, and you keep optimizing these. So the nature of the algorithm, whether it's a mathematical optimization or it is the data stream or new data streams that are coming from those algorithms, that changes the nature of how the algorithms behave. And it is impossible for someone who's a lawyer, who's coming from a totally, very, extremely different sort of place, to impose kind of questions and ask questions. But with GDPR, things are becoming a little bit easier, and I hope that if you're a GDPR consultant or you're focused on ethics or explainability or interpretation, that at least you're focusing on bringing the questions that you need to ask them. And that is something which I think is going to take a while. And I kind of sort of was trying to give that sort of introduction into this huge conference in France. And I was realizing that, it was a strange combination. I mean, we are not Facebook or Google. And so we were talking about how to actually break it down into digestible pieces. So for you as a company, if you are a company that is focusing on building algorithms where you borrow sort of wisdom from other companies like Google or Facebook, and when I say borrow wisdom, basically you using their algorithms, you're using dropout or activation functions that have been invented by researchers from Google. So I was explaining in very three simple steps. So I said, the first is essentially you need to have a data center strategy. You need to be able to know the data that you control, and you need to know the data that you don't have any control of. Meaning, when I say data you control, so it's your private cloud environment, And if you're looking at the data where you may or may not have control is the public clouds or potentially even hybrid clouds, because you just don't know how that is going to turn out, right? So basically, so that is the first layer, data center. And then you have a framework layer. So today, the most popular frameworks on internet are whether they are TensorFlow, PyTorch by Facebook. So essentially, the same companies where there is a lot of conversation going on today around, are the practices ethical? If the things and the tools that these companies have been developing, are they in favor of citizens, or are they favoring just the behavioral data collection practices? And then now you have private enterprises and small enterprises actually trying to adopt these frameworks. So the frameworks that these companies have built, and then it kind of becomes kind of complicated. And I don't know, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, what do you do when you just have a few top frameworks that have been invented by companies from from US or some other place, and so it's not easy to build a framework. There are companies, for example, Chinese companies have their own framework. Baidu has its Paddle. Huawei also has its own framework. So that was kind of, it becomes a bit complicated. So I just honestly don't have an answer to that. The only thing you can do is you can put interpretation, encryption, and potentially explanation into those models, knowing that these are the models that these companies provide. And then you still can actually answer the questions from an auditor who's probably will be asking you these hard questions. Explain the data. Tell me what the hell is going on. And I think that is probably very super crucial for companies to actually focus on. So the first is the data center strategy. And the second, you have your frameworks strategy. Which framework do I use? What are the other sort of APIs that I work with? And the third and the final important part is the model itself. Now, so if you break it down, data center, that's your infrastructure part. Framework, that is your orchestration layer. And then you have your model, that is essentially your technology layer, essentially. Well, if it's a model to do churn prediction, or a model to, I don't know, be able to ask or get the police in your region to do mob control. So it depends, in a public space or in a private enterprise. The models it's need to be explained with more detail and with more care. And that is something that has been a bit complicated, but it is a lot of development is happening. I'll give you one example. So I was thinking of this strategy, and from a database perspective. So I'm a database guy. I mean, I've been in this database industry for like 25 years. So in a database, just as a very simple example, in a database, you have you have a select argument. You can ask your database questions, it gives you answers. You have an update, you can update and optimize a database. And then you have a delete function where you can actually take a database or maybe the tables and do some optimization manipulation. And a model is not actually essentially a database. You could almost kind of, it is a tensor object. I mean, as in, in less mathematical terms, it basically is just a collection of a lot of generalization that your AI has created based on, the type of data it trained on. And so I was thinking about it. So why is it possible for us to be able to take this sort of complex model file, right? And if we can still peek into this model file, be able to carve out and kind of treat it like a database, if it's possible. Obviously, it's not as simple as, database, it's a tabular format. That probably makes it really super exciting for us as well as technologists, but also for the auditors, the people who want to understand. Tell me how your data set is and what else is happening inside your enterprise. it becomes a very good and a great way to actually have a conversation to give answers to the auditors, all these specialists in these regions. So basically, and when I was thinking about it, I started searching obviously on Google. So I said, okay, let's see, is someone doing something like that? I came across a PhD researcher in Stanford, and he was looking at a delete function, and I was like, okay, that's fascinating. So I mean, just hypothetically, an example, and I think there are some friends who also asked from healthcare industry, and they're trying to understand. Healthcare is a very sensitive area. We are looking at patient data from different regions. Now, if you were to train your data set on on let's say a certain demographic region, patients in a certain area, and you are looking at that data set and you're saying halfway through the training, or maybe even halfway when the data set, then the model is in production, that, well, I think we want to remove the region, let's say, or it could be an archetype. You could say we don't want to actually take, let's say, women from this age group or that demographic with this ethnical background, because that probably sort of, already sort of imposes more bias. And if at some point of a time, if you're able to build a system in which, all right, so Merve is here back. Let me just pull her back in. Awesome. I was actually going into the technology side. It's okay, totally no problem. So let me just finish my sort of talk. So I was about to conclude my sort of talk. So if, for example, in this healthcare system, you are able to say, so, well, okay, so I'm a hospital in Germany, and this is a real world sort of case. And I think one of the doctors who we work with is also watching this event right now. And so we say, okay, so we have this data set, we have all German citizens, we are able to identify breast cancer, and it has a reasonable accuracy. And as a lot of people who in Europe, there's a large Turkish population in Germany, over several million. And if the data from that community has not been sort of included into this data set, then it becomes a huge problem. And so then from a database perspective, which has been my background for 2 decades, if I were to be able to update or insert those statements into the data set and say, train again, the model will look a lot different. And at the same time, I could also, like I said, should also be able to say, well, people with Alzheimer's or with certain condition, we need to be able to delete that function. That should also work easily. And I think when that happens, the regulators, the auditors, even a citizen can raise that question and say, actually, I do not want to participate in this study for this whatever cancer research. It could be any other sort of field as well. I would like you to remove that, so the right to be forgotten can be included into AI as well. And that would become a very, very amazingly transparent system that allows us as technologists to continue to do awesome stuff, which we love. And at the same time, the regulators don't have to be, you don't have to call these big business leaders into, all these hearings in the Congress. You can just actually send your people to these technology departments, and these people can ask these questions and say, okay, so based on these guidelines, can you show us how your model looks like? Can you explain the level or the detail of transparency in your model? Is it 20%, 40%, 60%? Can you show us the evolution of that model? So I think that from that perspective, this whole explainability becomes a roadmap towards an ethical sort of a society in which technology starts actually providing, let's say, tools in order to make that happen. So I guess, Marv, you're back. Let me just put you back. I know as you have a presentation. So there you go. So go ahead. It's almost as if nothing happened.
Yeah, my apologies for that. My laptop decided to do an automatic reboot for Windows update.
Oh, man.
I apologize for that. But
no problem. Go ahead.
Following on exactly what you were saying, Terry, explainability and interpretability, it's not only good business. It's not, good for your business, for your clients, for the sake of your business and the future of your products. But as those regulations and different governance models are going to be expanding, it is going to be not only ethical, but it will be a legal requirement as well. And hence, where I'm coming to in terms of the regulators, implementers, the implementers, your clients are subject to these laws as well. And they will be asking those questions. They need to make sure that that they're not pushing or implementing a product that might cause discrimination. And the regulators will be asking those questions, not only for the products that they're regulating, that they're reviewing, but also for the public procurement. So if you're working with a government agency, military, whatever it is, that you should be able to explain to them and justify your decisions on your models as well. What you don't want to be is to be on the headlines, right? So we've seen, that's what I was referring back to, like some of the scandals, whether that is algorithmic recruitment tool, a pricing tool, that a machine learning pricing tool that you might be using, autonomous vehicles, medical algorithms, high frequency trading, or like Apple and Goldman Sachs example of the credit card being investigated for discrimination, all credit and loan application algorithms that go with that, or some of the algorithms that are being used in the criminal justice system, as well as the military. I want to underline that military at the moment, especially DARPA, and I'm going to go a bit further in detail into this in the training. DARPA is one of the defense research agency in US, and they're putting billions of dollars creating a partnership, public-private educational institute research partnership to bring more models into to explain the AI, explain machine learning and deep learning systems. Because what also they're looking at is if you're not able to explain what you're doing, all the future products in terms of computer vision, predictions, satellite imaging, drones, autonomous vehicles are going to be ruled by these models. So one of the biggest investments that the military is putting in, at least in the US, is around explainability. And we touched upon some of the, we touched upon the regulations, and we're going to have some more, like not going to details of each of these regulations, obviously, but the impact of regulation and governance itself, as well as policy. So in the US, if you have any product that is in US or in the US market, there's a number of already existing anti-discrimination legislation that is in place. Yes, a lot of these need to catch up with the machine learning and AI systems and their impact. So that is one of the discussion areas here. But also in Europe, if you're providing services or products, algorithmic products and services in Europe, you're also responsible or subject to GDPR. And you'll see that in terms of the transparency and modalities, access to data, all the rights to the end users, that comes like rectification, erasure, restriction of processing, notification obligations, etc., right to object. Everything ties back to explainability. So that's why we're saying that it's so much in the core, not only the ethical side of it, but this is really about your business and your future products and services. It sits right in the middle of things. I wanted to share this before I go into potentially as this last slide in terms of the business side. So PwC has run this AI predictions report, and they talk to 1,000 plus US executives, C-level executives last year, and asked for their call to action, what they had in terms of their AI predictions, their roadmap in terms of their products and implementations. And AI security validation monitoring, where we talked about the safety and security of your models, creating transparent, explainable, and provable AI models, creating ethical, legal, and understandable models, creating and improving the governance structure around this, and testing for bias and making sure that they're not using harmful, going back to the prevention of harm principle that we mentioned. These are all in the forefront of the executives' minds at C-level, because as I just mentioned, you don't want to be, not only want to be in the headlines with your company, you want to be on the good headlines, right? This company is doing amazing work. This is how they aligned their values with their products and services, versus a scandal and what your revenue, your customer base, your market share is tumbling down. They also ask about what steps to take in 2019 and future to develop and deploy AI systems that are responsible and trustworthy and responsible. So again, as you're seeing this with bias, governance, security, transparency, and explainability, and ethical systems, every single thing that the C-level executives are thinking for their future investment is relating back to the ethics, governance, and explainability. So I'm going to stop there. More to come in the training, obviously. But I want to spend a few minutes, Terry, if you'll allow me to go very quickly over some numbers, like showcasing the diversity or lack thereof of women in AI research and AI work. So Element AI has run a review of the papers, research papers that were published in the top 3 machine learning conferences, and they were looking at 2017. You'll see that at best, Taiwan is leading, if you can call 12% as leading, or sorry, 26% is leading, but the number or the diversity or lack of women in AI research, or that gender imbalance across these countries that are heavily investing in AI, is really sad. And that's one of the reasons why we ask all of you, Tarry and the team here is really leading as an example here, but we ask all of you to look into this. This is not a solved problem. We have a lot way to go. It's not any different when you're looking at the top industry names or academia, where employees who have published their research, AI research, the percentage of those employees at best is coming up to 25%. If you're looking at the likes of Google or Carnegie Mellon, we're looking at 10 to 15%. Microsoft about 12%. So we have some really issues, but it also reflects back on the investments. So here, where you're seeing is the total value of VC deals. So this is like the AI and machine learning related VC deals. You'll see that you're almost not even seeing the female-led venture capital deals here. We are looking at the future expansion and investments in billions and in machine learning and deep learning technology and the products and services in the next 10, 15 years. This is a really sad graph when you're looking at who is involved in that. When we're looking at the big tech, who has the biggest investments and who can actually make a change, you'll see that when you're focused on big tech and technical roles, we're not even at a quarter in terms of the woman. When we're looking at minorities, because I always want to do this intersection of gender as well as minority, because especially when you're looking at intersections, that the issue goes even worse. But if you're a minority and when I say underrepresented minority, please bear in mind, at least in US, Blacks, Latin Americans, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, mixed race. So everything had to be combined in this graph to make the graph actually readable and bring some sense to it. That's how bad the representation or underrepresentation of minority groups in big tech companies in Silicon Valley. Again, when we're looking at the intersection of race and ethnicity versus gender, you'll see that, and this is Google data, by the way, 2017 tech hires, 2% Black, 42% white, 47% Asian. So if you take you can see that the majority, almost 89% of Google employees is either Asian or white. When we're looking at the genders within those groups, the numbers go even further down. When we're looking at job applications across this, you'll see that at best the female applications are at 89% of Google employees is either Asian or white. When we're looking at the Terry, I have some. Okay, thank you. When we're looking at gender gap, you'll see how the gender gap is a huge issue when it comes to software and IT services versus females versus males. In terms of the share of AI talent pool. So females in the AI talent pool tend to go into software and IT services at 7.4% versus 32% in terms of the males. A lot of people, when you're discussing this, and I'm a part of the leadership group in Women in AI Ethics group, who is looking at AI both from a gender as well as ethics perspective and trying to bring more females to the forefront of these conversations. A lot of the time it comes up as, oh, it's a it's a pipeline problem that not enough females are going into study these subjects. Not enough females are applying to these companies or looking to work in here. No, it's not a pipeline problem. And I just want to underline that. We really need help from all of you in terms of improving the workplace culture, the hiring practices, incentive mechanisms, and avoidance of harassment within the workplace culture, as well as reflecting your values in this as well to kind of help balance that gap and ensure that you have diversity in your organization, which will reflect upon your products, which will reflect upon your services, as well as your revenues and markets, especially when we're looking at females and women around the world being more empowered with their purchasing power as well as their political power. So I just want to end here as a really fast in intro to the module as well as
Perfect. Awesome. I guess then we can wrap it up. I don't see any questions, but there will be questions. They keep coming because this recording will be there for you, the audience, and also the ones who have signed up but were not able to come. You can always come back and watch the video. To summarize, so me, Merve, and Dr. Dimitris, who's our new researcher, who's also very much interested in the ethics side of things and also from technology perspective. And there are some other new researchers who are coming. So we are working on actually several things. Number one, me and Merve, we are setting up this curriculum in the next couple of weeks, and we'll make announcements in the next couple of weeks when we will launch our training. So the Explainable AI training will have a technology component. It will have the policy component, which Merve just gave you a walkthrough. It is going to be a certification program for technologists, for policy leaders, for managers within HR, or looking at leadership development inside their companies. Or it could be a young person like you, as I mentioned, this young person who was on his first year of PhD in Stanford, thought that the need to bring technologies transparency, because it's possible, into the field of policy, and that is really helping. So when we start bringing these two cultures together, then we are not looking at sort of the alien sort of behavior which we tend to now portray technology as. And then there is the positive side of people on the technology who are capitalists, who have created their own wealth. And then there is the other side of sort of, the effects of technology where people are just policy leaders. They produce a lot of documentation. So to make these two sort of different groups of people come together, understand each other, that is what we're going to be putting into this Explainable AI training program. That is number one. The second, what we're obviously going to be doing is continuing our work. Merve has, she sits in several councils and has done some wonderful work. We are looking at some world leaders who have set up ethics platforms in their own regions, in their own countries. And Project Hominus is our answer from a technology perspective to try to create a bias-free, let's say, a data set, and eventually do inferencing on that bias-free data set. So that is a big ambition. For that, we are talking to large technology companies and seeing if we can kind of provide an answer that probably with the use of APIs at some point of time can provide a more fair answer to what technology can do. So these are the two immediate things. Obviously, we will be sort of launching, and we are looking for obviously people to work with us. So this is not just some sort of free lecture. I'm always interested in bringing people. I always do that. That's my strategy. It's like Elon Musk. My strategy is to not just to talk to people randomly. When I saw Merve, I saw her profile. We had a conversation just a couple of weeks ago, and I think you guys were also there about the racism, etc. So I was absolutely interested in her, and I said, we need experts to work with us. So I'm also recruiting as I speak. So if you're interested in policy, because we see there's a lot of terrible pain and a lot of misery, a lot of scientists, female scientists, they earn a lot less. They struggle a lot. Our own people have gone through horrible, miserable situations. I'm not new to this game. I've seen this even 20, 30 years ago. Every technological liberalization leads to scientists working at dumpster trucks. I've seen that. PhD candidates, husband and wife. Wife is serving coffee. She's postmasters doing her PhD, serving coffee at some company. Husband is working at a dumpster truck, PhD. So this is not how the world should be, I think. And this is where I think our interests and our goals and our minds and our hearts are aligned. And we want to bring an answer so you can actually take this certification and be part of this. So all that stuff is going to be coming. Obviously, I have a lot of questions for Merve. What we're going to try to do is me and Merve will set up, maybe we'll write an article together and probably address these questions, because these are pressing questions. I've been sitting with European Union councils to have this conversation. I've been sitting here in Europe and talking at the policy leaders. And they all come back and say, well, is there a way that we can work together? Is there a way you can help us? So there are many avenues for us to work. But as technology companies, big tech or maybe mid tech or even sort of smaller tech companies, participate with us. Your participation will be appreciated. I mean, if you're Apple or if you're a small tech company doing some awesome work in machine learning, we'd love to work with you. So thank you very much. Thank you, Merve. Maybe I want you to give the final sort of word, and then I'll shut down this. So what is the last, maybe we'll end with a question. So what, we've heard everything. Yes, there's diversity. I mean, this is such an unbalanced, asymmetrical sort of situation. What is one advice that you can give to, let's just say women, because this is a Women in Research and Education series. How should they stand out? Obviously, what we've seen is a traditional, we want more pay, and I stand behind these women. And I think somehow, all these sort of white males, I'm just using a stereotype, or males sitting inside their ivory tower, they just close the door, they'll go away, the noise will go away. So what should these women who are already empowered, they have purchased power, and they are contributing, and they're being part of the economy. What should be they doing different? There should be something different happening.
With that question, instead of what women should be doing different, what men should be doing different. I think we need to work on this together, just like anything else that in society, in your family, we really need to work together. So if you're a male who really cares about diversity, who really cares about ethics, but beyond that, cares about, as well as, not beyond that, but as well as your business, your product, diversity, different perspectives, different representations, as well as ethics. These are not nice to have. These are not constraints in your business. These are not a drain on your resources. Just the opposite. This is how you improve your products, improve your services. This is how you expand. It means business. So if you're in a position to make a difference, to make a decision in the company, whether you're a CEO or you're hiring for your department, question the workplace culture, question the asymmetries and the hiring decisions or hiring practices and the incentive mechanisms. Don't take, okay, we've been doing this like this for a long time. I never take that as your guiding thing, but always question. And if you see something wrong, raise your voice, be an ally, be there. Consider an injustice being done to your daughter, your wife, your sister. That's always the thing that I fall back to. Would you like your product, your service, or this person doing injustice to your children, to your sister, to your daughter, to your wife, whatever it is? If you're not comfortable with that, you shouldn't be doing it in your own company, in your own business, in your own department, right? Just be an ally and question the practices is where I would leave this.
All right. Perfect. Awesome. Merve, thank you. I think you and I will do some wonderful things together, and hopefully bringing some really wonderful people that you brought to me and to us. We will definitely, as I said, give sort of legs and feet and arms and heart and soul. And eventually, I think, it always starts with, in Indian, you say 1 and 1 is 11. And that's how you kind of build strength by strength. So I'm very happy to have you. Thank you so much. And I'll definitely we'll keep having this conversation. So I'll be ending the broadcast. Don't go away. Then you can have the both of us can have a wrap up. So thanks, guys. And please post your questions. We'll answer your questions. Thank you once again. Take care. Bye-bye.